All right, guys, this is lesson 11.4 on mean absolute deviation. And you guys have done this quite a bit with PSSA Power, so hopefully you're familiar. So first thing I want you to do is in your graphic organizer, I want you to write down the following steps for finding mean absolute deviation. So step one, and see if you remember this, the mean sandwich, is find the mean of the numbers. Step two is you subtract each number from the mean, and step three to complete your sandwich is find the mean of those numbers. Now we're going to do example one together. I have all the work underneath covered with this box because don't follow the steps they gave you. Follow these three steps as you do it with me. So this says the table shows the maximum speeds of 8 roller coasters. Find the mean absolute deviation of the set of data. Describe what the mean absolute deviation represents. All right, we'll talk about describing in a second. So first off, I have the steps, and I'm going to show you, you don't have to do this on the calculator, just kind of go along with me. So the first thing I did is I found the mean of these 8 numbers. So remember how to do that. You add them all up, and if you add them up, they add up to 512, and you divide by 8 because there's 8 numbers. And if you do that, you get 64. So 64 is the mean. And I always, when you're doing this, write down the numbers next to the steps, just so because there's too many numbers to keep track of in your head. Step two is you subtract each number from the mean. So each number we have to subtract with the 64, and you can use a calculator. So let me zoom in here, and I'm going to subtract each number with 64, and I'm going to write it in the line, in the space there. So 64 minus 58 is 6. 88 minus 64 is 24. 64 minus 40 is 24. 64 minus 60 is 4. 72 minus 64 is 8. 66 minus 64 is 2. 80 minus 64 is 16. And 64 minus 48 is 16. So step 2 is done, all those red numbers I just wrote in the box. Step 3 is find the mean of those red numbers. So I have to add up 6, 24, 24, 4, 8, 2, 16, and 16. They add up to 100, and then I divide by 8 because there's 8 numbers, and I get 12.5. Now remember how it said, describe what the mean absolute deviation represents. So what is that 12.5? What does that actually mean? So we'll write that down over here in the workspace. Uh-oh, my ink is... Let me get rid of that here. All right, so here's what the mean absolute deviation actually means. It means that the average distance each number is from the mean. So if you look at each number, the 58, the 72, the 66, the 88, on average, they are 12.5 away from the mean 64. All right, so that's what we're going to write. So we'll write here. The mean, and you could abbreviate that MAD, the mean absolute deviation of 12.5 means that on average, each number is 12.5 away from the mean. Okay. You can pause the video and get that written down if you need to. Now, remember the steps. Find the mean, subtract, find the mean again. You're going to be following those steps here. Okay, so you're going to be following those steps as we work on the worksheet. So make sure if you are absent, you grab this worksheet out of the folder, 11.4 classroom worksheet. So we're going to start off with problem 1. So here's what I want you to do in problem 1. I want you to find the mean, subtract each number, and find the mean again. So make sure you get problem number 1 done. Pause the video, do it, and then restart. Go. All right, so for number 1, if you're done, make sure you finish this before you're watching me go over it. First thing you had to do was find the mean. So did you add up all these numbers, 15, 45, 30, 25, and 20? If you did, they add up to 27. They add up to 135, and then you divide by 5, and you get the mean of 27. So the mean is 27. Then step 2, did you subtract each number from 27? So in the first one, 27 minus 15 is 12. 45 minus 27 is 18. 30 minus 27 is 3. 27 minus 25 is 2. 27 minus 20 is 7. That's step 2. And last, step 3, find the mean of those numbers I just wrote down. So add up all those numbers. They add up to 42. Don't forget to divide that by 5. And if you do 42 divided by 5, you get the mean absolute deviation of 8.4. If you had that, give yourself a C. Okay, now, number 2 you'll do on your own. You could do it now or you can wait. I'm not going over that one on the video. But we're going to go down and do problem 3. Okay, so for 3, remember, find the mean of these numbers. Then subtract each number from the mean and find the mean of those numbers. Pause the video, do 3 on your own, and then restart it. Go ahead. Okay, so first thing, make sure you're done now. When you found the mean, is you add up all those numbers, and they add up to 920. Do 920 divided by 10. You can do that mental math, just drop that 0, is 92. So the mean of those numbers is 92. Then you had to subtract each number with 92. So check these in case you messed up. Let me zoom in here. Okay, so 92 minus 75 is 17. 92 minus 89 is 3. 92 minus 80 is 12. 145 minus 92 is 53. 92 minus 85 is 7. 92 minus 60 is 32. 92 minus 92 is 0. 104 minus 92 is 8. Or I'm sorry, 104 minus 92 is 12. 92 minus 90 is 2. And 100 minus 92 is 8. Okay, and now you do step 3. You add up all of those numbers from step 2. And they add up to 146. Divide by 10. And you get 14.6 for the mean absolute deviation. Now, if you messed up, don't just mark it wrong and go on. You want to think, what did you mess up? Did you not find the mean of 92? Did you mess up one of your subtraction numbers here? Or did you get that right and mess up your final step of getting the mean of 14.6? All right, last one we're going to do is we're going to do together 5. So you still have to do 4, but you're doing that on your own. In 5, it says, the table shows the number of minutes Sherry exercised each day for 2 weeks. Find the mean absolute deviation for each set, round to the nearest hundredth if necessary, then write a few sentences comparing their variation. Okay. So here's what you've got to do. For week 1, you have to find the mean absolute deviation of these numbers. Remember, find their mean, subtract, and find the mean of those numbers. I would even write it down right here when you're done. Then for week 2, you have to find the mean absolute deviation of these numbers and write it down here. The last thing you have to do is write a sentence or two comparing their mean absolute deviation. So you can say something if week 1 has a higher mean absolute deviation, week 2 has a higher mean absolute deviation. Maybe you can talk about how they are really close or far apart. So you have to wait and see what you get. So here's what I want you to do. We're going to do this one in chunks. First thing I want you to do is just pause the video and find the mean absolute deviation for week 1. And then stop and restart to see if you're right. Okay? Don't go past week 1. All right, pause the video, do it. As soon as you're done with week 1, get started. Okay, so let's see if you got the mean absolute deviation for week 1. Let me zoom in so we can see it. First off, if I add these numbers up, 25, 20, 15, 30, 45, 10, 30, they add up to 175. Divide by 7, and I get the mean of 25. Now I have to subtract each number with 25. So 25 minus 25 is 0. 25 minus 20 is 5. 25 minus 15 is 10. 30 minus 25 is 5. 45 minus 25 is 20. 25 minus 10 is 15. And 30 minus 20 is 5. Last you have to find the mean of these 7 numbers. So when I add those up, they add up to 60. And don't forget to divide by 7. So if you do 60 divided by 7, you get a big long decimal. So you do 60 divided by 7, and the first couple digits are 8.571. Now remember, it said round to the nearest tenth if needed. So this 7 is the 10th place. This 1 keeps it a 7. So the mean absolute deviation for week 1 is 8.57. Remember, I rounded it. I'm sorry, to the 100th place. I'm saying 10th place. Okay, so now, if you had that right, good. If not, fix it, get the 8.57 written down, and think about your mistake. Because as you do week 2, we're going to do the same thing. Pause the video, find the mean absolute deviation for week 2, and write it here. Then start the video. Go. All right, so for week 2, let's see what you got. Did you add up 35, 45, 60, 25, 20, 15, and 10? If you do, they add up to 210. And you have to do 210 divided by 7, and you get 30 for the mean. So 30 is the mean. Now you have to subtract each number with the 30, which I'm going to zoom in so we can see. So let's start here. 35 minus 30 is 5. 45 minus 30 is 15. 60 minus 30 is 30. 30 minus 25 is 5. 30 minus 20 is 10. 30 minus 15 is 15. And 30 minus 10 is 20. So they're the numbers from step 2. Last, you have to add up those numbers and then divide by 7 to find the mean. So if you add those numbers up, they all add up to 100. And 100 divided by 7, you get another long decimal number. So I'm going to write down the first couple digits. You get 14.285. We'll round it to the 100th place. Now that 5 is going to raise that to a 9, so you should have 14.29. Now, the last step you have to do is you're going to have to write a couple sentences comparing those mean absolute deviations. So remember what I said you could talk about. You could talk about week 2, if it's higher or lower, are they close, are they far apart. You could subtract one from the other and talk about their difference. So there's a couple things you could do. Write at least 2 sentences, pause the video, do it. When you're done, restart it and see what you wrote. Go. All right, so here's what I'm going to say. I'm going to say that in week 2, the mean absolute deviation was about, let's say about 5 or 6 higher than in week 1, because I'm estimating 8.57 is about 9, 14 is about 14, 14 minus 9 is 5. So that's all I'm going to say. I'm not going to go too crazy there. So let me start writing it. Okay. So in week 1, I'm going to pause it so you don't have to watch me write. Okay, so in week 1, the mean absolute deviation is about 5 or 6 higher than week 2. So I didn't write that much. You can keep yours if yours makes sense. You don't have to have exactly what I have. All right, so we did the odds together. Guess what? I'm not doing the evens with you. So you've got to do 2, 4, and 6 on your own and be ready to hand this in. Thanks, guys.